to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we talk everything partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hello, everyone. On this week's podcast, we spoke to Chris Samila, who is the co-founder and chief partnership officer at a company called Partnership Leaders. So what do they do, you might ask? So they provide a community and a platform, which supports a vibrant network of professionals, approximately 1,300 members and growing. So this includes professionals in business development, partnership, alliances, modern tech, and service companies. Chris himself has a wealth of experience in partnerships, in a lot of the businesses that he's worked at, and he goes into a lot more detail about those during our conversation. We discussed, amongst other things, how partnerships are still quite new to a lot of companies, and how he's sort of championing this space, and the advocating all the benefits that partnerships can bring to a business. As usual, we find out his top tips on having high-performing teams and a solid culture, and also, usual some advice that he would give to his younger self starting out, which is really great. So, as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Game Set Matchup. So this is the podcast where we discuss all things partnerships. Maybe you're new to the partnerships world, looking for a little bit of advice on how to get started, or maybe you're an experienced pro and looking for a bit of inspiration and direction, whichever it is. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Carl Busby, and please welcome our guest today. So it's Chris Samila. He's the co-founder and chief partnership officer of Partnership Leaders. Hello and welcome, Chris.
Real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Carl.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure's all mine. So look, we'd like to sort of start off as we usually do, just to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself, maybe a little bit about your background, sort of what you're doing in the current role, and then also, what is Partnership Leaders all about?
Yeah, definitely. So spent pretty much my whole career in partnerships. I started on actually the physical hardware side of the world. I worked in wireless lighting controls as my first job out of college, and then moved over to Solar City, which was at the time the largest solar company in the world. And I managed Tesla motors for them. So whenever somebody bought one of the Model S's, my team of electricians went out and installed it. Definitely an exciting experience. Probably would have died young from stress. So I ended up making a pretty abrupt change. And I actually dropped down to being an SDR to join a company called Optimizely. I did that for a few months and then got the chance to build out their partner program because I was unfamiliar with the kind of the SaaS world. And this was back in like 2012. And so it was pretty apparent that how we went through partnerships was very different than, what I was used to previously. And so this sort of woke me up to the notion of like, channel partnerships in the traditional way of, the last few decades of how we do partnerships is somewhat largely different from especially like modern SaaS companies and how they go about their go-to-market motion from a partnerships perspective. And so when I moved on from Optimizely and joined another company called Full Story as their VP of partnerships, I quickly realized I needed to talk to peers about how the heck to do some of the things I didn't know how to do. And I realized I could probably share some experiences that I had learned. And so we created Partnership Leaders really as a passion project for helping partner professionals connect with one another, to network and to share experiences. And I did this at night and on the weekends. In essence, I had a full-time day job at Full Story. Yep. And after a few years, I interestingly enough ran to a company called Crossbeam, which many in the partner space are familiar with now. There's this like account mapping technology to help you, see where you have co-selling opportunities, et cetera. And so I was fortunate enough to join them as their first VP of partnerships. Again, still doing Partnership Leaders on the side, much more in the open because it was like, there's a very symbiotic relationship between like the tech side of what Crossbeam was doing and then the people and process side of what Partnership Leaders was offering. And after 2 years, we got to the point where it was apparent that to really make Partnership Leaders take off in the way that we wanted to, I was, grateful for the journey with Crossbeam, but it was time for me to move on. And so I joined full-time working on Partnership Leaders along with my two co-founders. And so that's where we're at today. And that change was about 6 months ago.
Yeah. lots of things to dive into there, but as you said, you must be extremely proud, as that's like a side project now, something that's become your main major. That must be something really to be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly grateful. We've had the support of, we have about 1,300 members globally in the community. And it's one of those businesses where really we're all sort of building this together. And so we're just trying to, in essence, the company of partnership leaders is trying to build the infrastructure, the platform to enable people to do all the networking and the sharing of knowledge and the events. And we have a huge conference we do each year called Catalyst. And so, it is. I adore working on partnerships. And so to now be able to help everyone, elevate their game in essence, is a really awesome feeling.
Yep. No, that's amazing. Obviously, you just mentioned obviously Crossbeam there. We spoke to Crossbeam. Of course, we've got his name now off the top of my head. But like I said, that was the poll was really good. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of one of the newer partner tech solutions out there. I mean, there's about 150 or so overall kind of technologies servicing the partner and channel space. But in the last few years, there's a lot more, in essence, SaaS founders that are coming to the table. A lot of them are ex-partner people that are, there's a ton of seed-level stage companies that are doing cool stuff, including Finder, obviously. There's a new generation of tech that's hitting the market to serve the needs of all of us, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, obviously, you just touched on the Finder in terms of we are completely new platforms. Nothing really out there like that we sort of do. And like I said, same thing. We're helping businesses to have those initial conversations and what we call the discovery call, which is essentially it's discovering whether you've got any synergies where you can work together as a partnership. So totally get that. Just also one thing I'd like to sort of ask is obviously you talked a bit about your background and the Tesla and the wireless lighting. I love a bit of wireless lighting, by the way, just I've got a few of those. Is partnerships the role? Is it something you kind of always wanted to get into, or for a lot of people, we fall into roles we don't necessarily plan out that we're going to do that. We kind of sometimes just stumble into these things and think, this is actually, I quite enjoy this sort of thing. Or, so is it something that what kind of happened? Or is you've always, from being on JJ, this is it's something you've always been passionate about?
Yeah. So the company I worked for at the time in the lighting space was called Adura Technologies. They ended up getting acquired by a large lighting conglomerate, but we were all sort of passionate about the concept of sustainability. And it was how do we create these devices that could turn off the lights based on the time of day or the sunlight or load shedding and things like that when power is expensive. And so you had this sort of optimistic crew of people that were trying to bring this product to market. We were, downtown San Francisco. And as we started selling this, we were there's all these lighting distributors and stuff that it seems this is how we need to go to market, versus just a direct model. And so it was us realizing as a company that we had to, in essence, follow the path how those things get sold. And so I shifted from direct sales into working with these lighting distributors, and this was back in 2009, and so it was still the backside of the Great Recession and whatnot. And so it was a combination of collaborating with government agencies that had rebates and stuff to help support early stage clean tech companies, as well as these distributors and resellers of different lighting technologies. And so it was I could say I fell into it. Luckily I fell into it really early in my career.
But
that's kind of how it all came about.
No, that's brilliant. It's always just interesting, I think I just find it interesting to know how people got to get into it. Okay, great. So look, obviously just keep on the theme of partnerships, obviously. How sort of you seen, obviously with partnership leaders, or maybe, in a previous business, sort of approach change to, creating partnerships, I guess, in recent times. Obviously, things have changed massively all over the world, sort of last 3 to 4 years. Obviously, COVID being the most obvious thing that's changed the world, and how we sort of do business, more hybrid working, and just like you said, these things have sprouted up. SaaS technology just changed so much over these last few years. How you sort of had that approach, how has that sort of changed? And also for partnership leaders in terms of a gold star partnership that you would say like, yeah, this is, this works for both parties and it's just, absolutely a gold star. What was that? What is that for you?
Yeah, definitely. So on the first part, I think, thinking about maybe like 3 themes to help orient us on like the changes we've seen. So one of them is sort of a like large global change in partnerships is this shift from just the partners being focused on the moment of like transactions. So Jay McBain over at Canalys talks a lot about this, which is like the traditional channel world was really oriented around like partners that could help at the moment of sale, whether it's a reseller or a distributor or someone that's like, making their worth attached to that moment of sale. And the reality with SaaS is that there's partners that can influence up and down the entire customer lifecycle. And so, affiliates at the very beginning, referral partners, you have, because of the way that customers buy technology, they usually want some relationship with the vendor due to privacy and data reasons or the ability to influence the product roadmap. And so the nature of how SaaS operates means that you have more partners co-selling with the vendors. And then on the post-sale side, especially now in the economic situation we're in, the sort of customer success motion or co-success motion between a partner and the client and the vendor is now like more and more popular. And so you look at this like string of actors or partners that can touch this customer journey, it's much broader than maybe it was historically. So that's like kind of one big macro theme that is changing how we think about managing partners, enabling them, training our own organization on like the role of these partners. And so this is where folks are building their little maps of like the ecosystem of players around them that they collaborate with. And sometimes you're the big party in that. And sometimes you're just a small player. So that's one key thing. The second one would be the advent of things like Crossbeam and Reveal and PartnerTap. And there's like a handful of players in that sort of partner ecosystem platform or account mapping technology. That is, this is not just because I worked at Crossbeam, but like I could see firsthand, literally 10,000 plus companies. We've in essence enabled the ability to know this relationship data in a programmatic fashion, which means you can obviously use it to find opportunities, on a manual basis, but you fast forward in the next few years, you now can programmatically send that data into marketing campaigns, into sales software for, pipeline forecasting, or how do you expand internationally? Like, where do you have partners that have relationships in different countries? I mean, there's just that sort of freeing of the data is very, very, very powerful. And like, it does change the game a little bit on like the really efficient partner teams are using that data to make themselves just like way smarter as a company. And so I think that's super exciting. And it's like kind of invigorated the venture capital industry to look at more and more, solutions that are serving the partner teams, because we are historically so underserved compared to marketing, sales, and customer success. So I think that's like the second big trend is like the advent of these solutions. And the third one is like the realization that companies need to have a partner first mentality as they go to market, because marketing is getting more expensive from, the purchasing ads and all other factors at play there. The ability for SDRs to pick up the phone and chase people has gotten less and less effective over time. And so it's like, as companies have to think about how do they efficiently grow, and also take into account, the product roadmap component, there's just so many reasons why companies should be thinking about using partnerships, not just as a siloed, channel function in the corner, but actually like across the entire business. Every department should be collaborating with partnerships and building that into their strategy. And we're still early on this journey. There's a lot of CEOs that are trying to figure out how to do this, but at least they're interested and excited about it. And that's the piece that has me really optimistic about the next few years, is like, I think we're going to see more companies help make partner teams a more, central component of how they grow, and then resourcing them effectively. I'm sure some of your listeners, they're an army of one. They have very little resources. They have very little budget, but they're doing a lot of stuff. And hopefully that starts to change over the next few years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's touched on loads of course good points there. I mean, the term customer success. I mean, that's what we do. I'm in the customer success team here at Finder. So I'm right in the middle of it. But yeah, I think so a few years ago that the term customer success, that just wasn't kind of around. And like now, like you said, because of the growth of all this, SaaS, it's just become just more more of a sort of a normal term. You find loads of sort of customer success manager roles and teams and that kind of stuff. Serving these platforms now. So yeah, no, 100%. Moving to the next question, just to get into this. I mean, again, at Finder, we are all about helping businesses to create partnerships. Obviously, that's what we do. At the moment, so with partnership leaders, or maybe it said in the previous business, like how are you sort of going about creating as partners? Say you talked about you've got X amount of how many members. How are you sort of going about growing that, or the types of things that you're also doing to get the word out about partnership leaders?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting journey because like when you look at the category we're in, community is almost like doesn't fully encompass what we're doing. And this is where there's other organizations that look similar to us. Pavilion's probably the most salient example where they're serving sales, marketing, customer success. It's like this interesting combination of like people connections, the sort of education that goes along with like getting better at your craft. And then there's all these like ancillary components of like events and tooling and resources and things to help someone along their journey professionally. And so it's like this interesting blend of like community and industry association and all these other components to help someone be successful. And so that creates a lot of surface area for us to think about partners. So I mentioned Pavilion, they're a partner to us as another, supportive community. We do, content together. We did an event where we invited CEOs and some of our senior members to an event in Banff where we went skiing together. So there's like this notion of like executive retreats and things like that. We have big conferences we do. And so we find places where there's like content kind of partnership opportunities. There's, referral type of opportunities where someone's a good fit for them, another community, but not for us, or vice versa. There's the technology partnerships component, because for partnership leaders, I'm personally very passionate about this because I see a lot of entrepreneurial companies trying to serve the problems of our space. And so we actually have an angel syndicate inside partnership leaders called PLI that has helped support a lot of the series seed through series C kind of partner tech companies. So how do we in essence foster this next generation of technology companies? And so some of those become sponsors of partnership leaders. In other scenarios, they're members, but we do more with them. Like we have a Tools of the Trade content series where we highlight sort of behind the scenes about these new technologies. And so it's like there's just so many things we could be partnering with. And so it's sort of like figuring out how do we prioritize the ones and bucket them into, new member acquisition or retention of members, or revenue generating activities to support the growth of PL. And so it's definitely one of those things we have to be like very conscious of prioritization, because there is a lot of potential things we could be spending time on from a partner perspective.
Yeah, no, 100%. It just sounds like there's a lot going on. And like you said, it's just finding which ones to prioritize and like I said, make the most out of. But I said those events they sound pretty good. It's like a nice balance of work and pleasure at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, we've done a lot of like education conferencey, kind of like networking things. And I think one of the hypotheses I have is that as we went all remote, a lot of people got disconnected from their personal networks because they're living somewhere very different. And, it's sometimes hard to make new friendships per se. And so it's like, how do we create an environment where folks, they're in partnerships for their career? How do we do something where it's a multi-day event that they can really go deep on some of these new, friendships / relationships? So this notion of like a PL experience type retreat is something we'll probably end up doing, hopefully many, many, many times in the future. And it complements everything else, on the more kind of traditional education networking side of things.
No, 100%. I think, obviously, they do similar types of events and stuff that obviously we go to over here. And I say it's just a good icebreaker of everybody's there to obviously for a reason, but it's just a good way to open up those conversations and stuff, and it's not a forced thing. It's not somebody trying to sell you something. And kind of you can be able to just build that relationship first before you start talking business, basically.
One comment that was really funny. You definitely built deep relationships in this last trip, because we had a gentleman who had a friend who was like an X Games skier, and so he took us down some like double diamond slopes, and there's nothing more, and you definitely can build a close bond when you're like terrified with the person next to you. So
putting that trust, you're putting that trust into that
exactly,
and obviously a lot of that goes into partnerships as well. So 100%. Good one. The next question I like to ask this. I think it's again really good for people listening in. Obviously, you've got a ton of experience, in terms of partnerships and the business you've worked in. What sort of advice would you sort of give to your younger self, sort of starting out? I mean, there's probably a few things, maybe some things you can talk about, some you can't. But anything, any sort of advice you sort of say give to yourself, for people that are like starting out on this journey, or they're looking to get into the partnerships world. So we know it's growing all the time. So just any advice you'd give your younger self.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things. One of them is there's a decent number of companies that don't have any partner teams yet. And the thing that I'm hearing as I talk to CEOs is sometimes they know it's important, they should be doing it, but they don't know how to hire for that first partner leader. And so I would say don't be shy reaching out if you see a technology company that you think their product's amazing and you can kind of pattern match the types of partnerships they should be building. Reach out to that CEO, send them something in the mail, or figure out a way to get their attention that you could potentially create an amazing opportunity for yourself. If you can help them understand how you envision building a partnership program at their company. I've seen some peers do this recently to great effect. That's how I got my first job. I printed out a little packet about why I wanted to work for these companies in the clean tech space, and I FedExed it to the CEOs, and it's like, wow. You can kind of break through the resume sort of craziness that we are in at the moment. Being out of work. So, be a bit fearless on chasing the types of companies you want to work for. And I think that's, one component. And then if you're in a company that is, building their partner program, definitely take on responsibilities to do stuff that you're maybe uncomfortable doing. I mean, I think that's we already inherently as partner professionals have to take, in essence, put our hands in a lot of pies to figure out how to do marketing campaigns and enablement and all that kind of stuff. Go and spend time with folks that like yourself, you're a CSM. A lot of the things you figured out that work well to help your customers, partner professionals can apply that to partner enablement. And so it's kind of we can become these sort of army of one type of professionals, because we inherently have to do things in a lot of other departments and learn skills that is a bit broader than maybe other professions might have to do. So it's I personally read industry reports for CS and sales and marketing. I read blogs. I follow people that are experts in those spaces, because we can take the learnings from a lot of those folks and apply them to partnerships. So I'd say that'd be the second thing. And then the third one is just know that our time in the sun is coming for partnerships. The VC industry is investing in tons of technologies. You can look at the journey of marketing being a huge deal tech-wise in the early 2000s. Then the sales technology boom happened. The CS or customer success boom happened in the mid 2015 range. And it's ours is coming. We're freeing the data to be able to do things more programmatically. We're getting more resources for new companies to pop up and make our lives just a lot easier, because we still do a lot of manual admin stuff. That is going to change pretty quickly, especially with all the AI things that are happening, which is just bonkers. I have a friend who literally, he just feeds over information into ChatGPT, and he's taught it characteristics about his partner program. So when he asks for things like a new template, et cetera, it already knows his referral percentage and the regions he operates in. And so it's that kind of stuff is just a game changer to make us more efficient. So fun times ahead.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Yeah, you just mentioned I spoke to somebody who did a podcast actually recently, just and they worked in the AI space, and I mean, obviously, probably for some people it's quite scary, but I mean, I'm fascinated by that technology in terms of what it can, what it's going to be able to do, and but yeah, no, just going back on your point, again about being, fearless and just not, just try, just sort of go for it, sort of thing. Don't let people tell you, you can't do this or you can't do that. So I do like that, I do like that mantra. Yeah. So also, just staying on the theme of sort of some tips. I know again in this role, maybe in previous businesses, you've worked with teams, maybe you've managed some teams previously. What would you say, some tips for creating a high performing team and a solid sort of culture within the business? I mean, we all know if you've got a happy team, happy culture, that generally tends to keep the business going in the right direction. So like I said, any of those sort of tips on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the situations we sort of face as partner, especially leaders, is the resourcing component of making sure that we can help our team get the things done they need to. I think this goes back to ensuring that the CEO and that the board understand the role of partnerships. And this is brutally apparent right now as we see some partner teams being fired across the board at some companies, and in the same type of company in a specific industry is growing their partner team and is doubling down on this sort of partner first mentality. And a lot of that comes down to the responsibility of the partner leader to make sure that the CEO and the board understands what what the role of partnerships really is in a modern technology company.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of covering fire at the executive level ensures that you do get some marketing budget for events, and that you get resources from RevOps to build out your attribution in Salesforce or HubSpot. You in essence, it's the responsibility of these partner leaders to make sure that their company understands this stuff. And if they don't, set a timetable for yourself. Anyone in their prime working in the tech industry, don't spend too long at a company that doesn't understand the vision of what they should be doing with their partner organization. Don't kind of waste too long in a bad fit company, because this happens very often. I think a lot of us want to fix things, and if after 18 months you realize this is just not the right place, there's a lot of companies that are still hiring and growing their teams, and they do have the right philosophy of how to build a partner program. And so I think this is why we see it's almost like the great reshuffling of talent occurring right now, where some very, very tier one partner professionals are just amazing professionals are out in the market right now, and they're going and they're becoming the first hire at some new hot startup company. And so I think just ensuring that you've taken your shot at making sure the business understands what partnerships should be doing. And if you find that you're kind of hitting your head against the wall, start looking around. There's amazing companies out there that are looking for talented professionals.
Yeah, no, I think I'll say some good advice there. As I say, for anyone, like I said, if you're not, you've been the business for 12 to 18 months, and you don't feel it's the right fit. It's time. Don't just stay there. For the sake of so much, so much potential and stuff out there. So, get involved. Cool. Yeah. Well, just brings on to the last question. Now, obviously, we've touched a little bit on some of this stuff already in terms of what we've been sort of talking about, but I think it is interesting just to get the opinions from people in terms of what they think the future holds, when it comes to partnerships. As I said, we have touched on it, so we've said this because it's a growing sort of industry. So it might be repeating yourself a little bit, but yeah, like you said, what do you think the future sort of holds, for obviously for yourself, with partnership leaders, and then maybe just, in this whole partnership thing in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the future is very bright for our space. I think we're not very far away from having a lot of case studies come out about this sort of partner-led growth company strategy. I think we need to be careful with getting too associated to influence revenue if you can't track it effectively. I think this is something that especially tech partner teams are struggling with. Is your technology partners may not be sourcing deals for you, but they're absolutely influencing these like sales opportunities. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to get tooling to help us make this easier to do. In the current world we're in, make sure that your partner team is close to the revenue generating side as much as possible for the company, and understanding like how much of a role you're playing to drive the company forward. This is where I see a lot of people, teams are getting cut, or personnel are getting cut because the C-suite doesn't understand what they're doing, and it's hard to measure the impact that they're making on the business. But I think the thing I'm most excited about is like the tooling's catching up now to make this easier. The CEOs are understanding, more and more how to leverage partner teams effectively. And then I think like the ability, you can't go on Amazon and buy a book about how to do, partnerships in this modern sense. Yeah. So a lot of the peer-to-peer learning is still inherently something that you have to lean into to be best in class. And we're still very much writing the book of how to do this. I mean, every single week we see some new idea or process or thing in partnership leaders that, I literally just did a recording this morning with a gentleman that, is focused on partner operations. And I was like, he showed me 3 things that I've never seen before. I was like, that's just so smart. Like, and it's like, I'll pass that on to a bunch of other people. And so I think like, that's what's so exciting about these like notions of these, kind of newer communities where it's real-time communication and people are sort of oriented around being transparent. Even if their competitors are there, you can still share a best practice of how you're doing attribution or things like that. Because again, like many of us are in partnerships for our careers. And so it behooves you to invest in your network and to make sure that, you're close to the action on all this stuff, because it is a very exciting time to be in our industry.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like I said, all the stuff you just touched on there, it is very exciting. And it sounds like you're doing incredible things with partnership leaders. Obviously, I will be, following. I'll be checking on LinkedIn from time to time, see how things are going. But look, we'll come to the end. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to obviously come and talk to us and give us your experiences. Like I said, I've learned a little thing or two. And like I said, really, just really good to get an understanding of what you're doing, over there at sort of partnership leaders. Like I said, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us.
Carl, tremendously appreciate the opportunity. If anybody's, obviously in the partnerships world, we'd love to have you come join us at Partnership Leaders. We're doing some big events in late June over in Europe as well. So I know you have a lot of listeners from that region. So Paris and London, there's going to be some big events on the ground. So we'll see everybody online, hopefully.
Yeah, well, you heard it here first. So, like I said, everyone wants to get in touch. So we'll be putting all the details and everything on LinkedIn to be able to reach out. But again, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Take care.
Thanks for joining this week's Game Set Matchup. Tune in to hear more about the need to knows and the do's and don'ts when it comes to creating successful business partnerships.